You just found the statue of the voluptuous
the voluptuous Ood statue.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was after the...
There was a gold...
You had dug through a hole in the side
we dug the hole in the rubble wall.
Yeah.
Because we knew that if we took the path that led past the there's a narrow path along the edge of the chasm into utter destruction. Yeah. No. There's
that had been specifically set up to force you to walk it.
Yeah.
That can't be bad.
Yeah. We're like, no, we're just going to tunnel through walls from now on.
Yeah.
That will come up again later. Anyway, so there was also a single gold piece lying on the floor, which we ignored real hard.
Yeah.
No way are we picking up that gold piece.
That piece is BS.
Yes. At some point, didn't someone say, maybe we should pick it up just to see what it does? I'm going to go pick it up. And everyone's like, no,
idiot, no.
I don't remember that was.
I don't think it was a serious suggestion. If it was anyone, it would be
now
Robin.
You'll never know what it is.
I don't care. This is a horrible place, and I hope to never think of it again. Anyway, so beyond that, we went forward, and we started getting shot at. This was the turrets was next.
Yeah, because Hank went forward, and I think this was the point where the party had no decisiveness.
Oh yeah. It was so horrible. None of the characters are leader material,
right? You know, and the two most leadery characters are played by the two least leadery people. So Robert and Shannon never really set the direction.
Yeah.
They're the characters who would set the direction, and everyone else is just like, oh, just wait to see what someone else does. And so
Tim sort of might, but he's playing an insane person.
Yeah.
So probably not the best party leader.
And he does it because I remember that part.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, so what should we do? And no one's deciding. And suddenly Tim or Croesus just starts going off on a monologue about his war history with Chris and what's his face? Fennec or whatever. And he's just talking on and on and on and on. And I could just see Brian someone do something.
But of course, Cricket can't possibly
be the one.
Do something. You know? He's all like, what should I do? Somebody tell me what to do. I think it was Hank that eventually went on.
we were trying to. I think we were trying to encourage Robert or Shannon to have their character do something. So finally, Robert's like, "All right, Hank just walks forward." Yeah. Like, all right.
And so Cricket went along with him. And the Croesus, I think, followed along shortly afterwards. But anyway, so
rambling on.
Hank heads off into the darkness and starts getting shot at by you can just barely see it in the darkness in the distance. There's this wall that's made out of scrap metal welded together in a cage mesh type thing, so it gives cover. And beyond that, in darkness, there's this automated turret that's popped up and is firing through the wall at us. So it is insane armor class with the cover and the darkness and blah 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 like that. It's 30 AC and we're second level. So yeah.
And actually, I had made a mistake because with all the stuff on it, you should have actually hit 35.
Yeah.
Which was basically impossible, but people had things to counteract some of that too.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, these turrets, they weren't really meant to be targets to shoot at, but I figured, well, the disarm DC, if they hit the AC of that, I'll say that they shot the turret apart, or they shot the mechanism.
Yeah.
It's stupid hard, so that's reasonable.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what they tried to do, not knowing how hard it was, of course.
Yeah, and I think who's got the first lucky hit? I think Hank did a critical hit.
Someone...
I know Adron had a thing where he could ignore concealment or something.
Yes.
And that gave him a barely chance, and he missed anyway.
Well, not having concealment meant you only had to hit 25, I think.
It was something pretty high, but
right. Yeah, you only
within the realm of
you only had to hit
possibility.
25 with that ability because it ignored the concealment.
Yeah.
But you had to hit 30 otherwise, which is basically impossible.
Yeah. So Aderon had a chance but missed, and then Hank critically hit and hit it, and took out one of the turrets. And so we're like, yes, it bleeds, we can kill it.
And there were 3 turrets shooting.
There were 3 turrets
And
shooting.
They were in an area, there was more parked benches or whatever, and there were more benches in an empty tree spot, and that was right in the middle of where the wall of welded together metal was, so they were taking cover behind the bench and popping up and shooting it. And
so we had cover, they had cover. No one could, we were getting hit.
and by the end, I think like Hank and Croesus they had no chance of hitting it, but they were just standing up being targets, so that they had a chance of it hitting them instead of the other characters.
Yeah. Cricket managed to take one down because John forgot to cover bonuses at one point, and I rolled really high, so I actually managed to hit one.
That was the first one.
Was it? I thought Hank took out the first one.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Cricket shot the first one, and it was because I forgot to take into account the concealment.
Did Hank throw something?
Cricket was throwing rocks. He doesn't have any ranged weapons.
They were basically just hoping for crits.
Yep, that was the only way to really hit it.
It wasn't exactly my expected way that they would deal with this problem, but they're like, no, we're just going to keep standing here and taking it and throwing rocks until we luck out and destroy this thing. All right.
But Cricket was really confident and super eager to do her part and stuff like that, and so she was just being whittled down and healing surging back up and, firing away and like, no, I'm totally going to do this. And everyone's like, maybe we should tell Cricket not to be doing this because she's just getting pummeled up here. She's really not, she's getting massacred. But no one actually told her not to. And so she was all gung-ho for it, so she was doing her best. But eventually, we took out 2, and then we decided that, we're getting whittled down faster than these are, even though there's only one left. Cricket was totally like, we could do this, we could do it! But they said no, and so Cricket was okay. So we fell back away from the thing out of its range. And we start looking for an alternate route around. And that's when we find Riproar's puzzle room. Riproar's puzzle room. Riproar's puzzle room. Riproar had all these limericks that he was spouting off with glee about his wonderful puzzle room he was so happy about.
And I think it was Croesus who found it first.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? There was a lever, and there was a rune on the floor, glowing blue rune.
Yeah.
And beyond that was a room full of like tiles, each with a different rune, all these different runes on it.
And some of the tiles had circular cracks, but obviously you could rotate the things and stuff like that.
It's sort of hard to describe. Like I had a little graph paper that I gave them that showed the layout, and there was 2 doors.
Basically, your typical BS trap room full of runes all over the floor. And there were 2 doors at the end of this room.
So I just remembered something because they were like, they're thinking, should we pull this lever first?
Yeah.
And so Aurora asked Riproar, because she has a good rapport going with them, should we pull this lever? And his response was, maybe Hank better pull it.
Riproar's really focusing on Hank for some reason. So anyway, I think
Hank should pull it.
Croesus tried pulling the lever and he got electrocuted. And so we look at these things and like, okay, obviously there's this glowing rune that's sitting off on its own, and then there's some copies of that rune out in the grid, and some of them are on the rotating tiles and they're oriented a different direction from this. Let's make it all, the obvious choice, or orient them the same as that thing and then try pulling the lever again. And we did, and it worked. One of the 2 doors opened. And so the whole party filed into the small room that the door had opened. The door slammed shut behind us, Or no, it doesn't slam shut.
It didn't slam shut.
Yeah.
I said that initially, but it didn't.
Yeah. And then the room starts spinning like a rock tumbler. And we're all getting
full of
tossed
rubble and
around
stuff, right?
Stuff like that. So we all climb out and we're like, yeah, haha, real funny Riproar.
The best was like after it stopped, it slowed down, and he's like, all right. I won't turn it on this time. You can go in there for real now.
Yeah. And all this time, I've been sort of like saying, I don't think there's a real solution to these things. I think that it's just a bunch of stuff to make us run through hoops and get hurt, because that's Riproar's thing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a real solution to this. But Hank figured out the real solution. Hank so far, he's the barbarian, but he's been puzzling all these things out and coming up with the clever tricks to these things. So he goes to the other door that we haven't got to open yet, and he takes his hammer and he smashes the door down, and bam, the door gets slammed inwards and triggers like a shrapnel trap, but the door is in the way, and so
he critted. He rolled a 20 on his smash the door down check.
Yeah.
So I said that like the trap was ineffective because he hit it so hard.
Yeah. So he solves the puzzle.
Just as a note, before he did that, Croesus had this theory that because he had rotated all the runes one way to open the one door and the other door was on the opposite side, so he rotated all the runes the other way, pulled the lever and got electrocuted. So we knew that wasn't the solution.
Yeah. Turns out violence was. So we go through there, and we immediately discovered a big open space beyond. We're on the other side of that grid wall thing, the metal mesh thing that was giving cover to those turrets.
Yeah, it's sort of it's like you can think of it as like a wall of bars or whatever, but it's not really a wall of bars. It's a bunch of welded together metal basically that just you can see through, but you can't get through.
So we immediately discovered there's an invisible wall that gives a slightly damaging electrical shock.
Yeah, 1 hit point of damage. So yeah. I think it was Croesus. Croesus just walks up, hits this electrical wall, takes 1 hit point of damage.
Yeah. And after a little bit of poking around, we discovered there's a maze of these things. An invisible maze that hurts you when you touch the walls and lets non-living matter through. So we can't like use a stick to poke or throw pebbles or whatever. So,
and of course, Riproar is loving that.
Yeah, and there's a huge area beyond here. It's going to be a huge maze. We're like, screw this. Let's go back to that mesh wall and tear a hole in it. And shoot the other turret and brute force that too. We'll use Hank's solution on this. So we go, and we spend like 8 hours tearing a hole in this wall.
Yeah, I said it was really hard to do. And so I had to make these checks, and I had to make endurance checks for like running out how many healing surges it was going to cost. And it cost quite a few healing surges. Some people had to quit partway through because they were out of healing surges.
It made
because it was hard work.
I could have made it with 4 hit points left at the end of the day. No healing surges and 4 hit points left. I could have done it. I would have been able to help take that wall down, but they made me stop.
Yeah, Cricket tried to bluff and be like, "Oh, I'm fine to keep going," as she starts bleeding, doing the job. But Aderon just beat her bluff by 1 and refused to let her continue.
Yeah.
It was a lengthy process.
So
they finally got a hole that was just big enough to squeeze through.
Aurora got stuck. But anyway, and immediately on the other side, it's one of those invisible walls that zaps you. And Riproar laughed. Now, we did manage to bypass like half the maze. Now, this got us in about the halfway point. But still, we had no healing surges left. We were dog tired because we had just spent 8 hours tearing a hole in this wall. So we decided to do an extended rest.
And there was some debate over which side of the wall they were going to do it on. Because they didn't want Riproar to seal it back up. But yet they didn't want to sleep. Like, it was like a little area, like the size of this table, surrounded by walls that zap you if you touch them.
Yeah.
They're all going to like try to huddle in there.
And Croesus has previously established that when he sleeps, he has night terrors and flashes around and stuff like that. So anyway, I think we wound up sleeping on the maze side. We found a slightly larger area, like a few steps in, that were big enough to camp in. So we had our extended rest. And then...
Oh, and I also recall, this wasn't really that relevant, but as soon as you came through to the other side, you were close enough to the fourth turret that started shooting you, and of course it shoots through the maze because it's inorganic. But they just destroyed that. It wasn't particularly...
It didn't have cover.
Right.
It made it hittable.
We tied a sunrod to an arrow and fired it at the thing to get the darkness away. And that was why I mentioned when you were talking about the sunrod and how it blinked out.
Yeah.
I was like, but sunrods have hours of duration.
Yeah.
We had to do that.
Indeed.
So
have you figured out how to deal with the maze yet?
Well, Cricket actually had a good idea. She was like, okay, these walls only injure living things. Mm-hmm. If only we had thousands and thousands of little expendable living things that we didn't care if they lived or died, that we could dump into the maze and then just follow the trail of their dead corpses. The maggots downstairs. We could gather up, bucketfuls of these things and just dump them in the maze, and they'd go squirming around, and But the party didn't want to try to deal with those maggots because
they're pretty freaky.
Yeah. I think if we took precautions, we could probably have handled it better. Anyway.
Wait, living or does living organic material get zapped, but dead organic material not? So what about a piece of wood?
Wood was going through just fine. So
okay.
Yeah, wood was going through. So
you could just put a maggot on the end of a stick and use it as a guide rod and zap. Maggot.
I also considered that, but that required also.
Did you also offer cricket?
And
I will go forth and take the zappings.
I didn't get to that, unfortunately.
I think one thing did come up though. It was you that had the shock, right?
Yes.
So it was possible to, once they hit a wall, and they had someone confirm that if you hit the wall, it's always there. So they started chalking the walls.
This was when the most terrible, wonderful idea was presented. Hank, when he's shifted and bloodied, regenerates. And it is just like, continuous.
Right. As long as he's bloodied.
Yeah, and even if he goes back below bloody, it still lasts. So he basically just always stays at, as long as he's not taking more than 2 hit points around, he stays at bloodied.
Right.
And those things do 1 hit point of damage.
Right.
So they were discussing this quite abstractly, but I pointed out, it still really hurts. It's still awful.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I know, but it's all we can do.
So Hank just starts feeling his way around the maze.
Yeah, and he just proceeds. I had this graph paper in front of them, and he's like, all right, it wasn't even graph paper, it was just blank paper. He's like, okay, I just go north. I'm like, okay, and all right, I go east. All right, I go north. And it just proceeded bit by bit as he slammed into wall after wall after wall.
Meanwhile, Cricket is following along behind him saying, please stop, don't do this. And chalking out,
It was actually quite horrifying.
Yeah, and Aurora is like, she breaks down into tears eventually at the horrible things going on, and Cricket is just pleading with him to stop, and Hank's just continuing on, and Riproar's laughing his head off.
Hank is getting madder and madder, and Riproar's just busting a gut, and he's just busting a gut, and occasionally he'd be like, okay, can you just stop for a minute? I just gotta go get some popcorn, 1 second. Whatever. But Hank is just getting madder and madder. That reminds me, when you guys figured out, mentioned that Hank had regeneration, from across the room, Riproar was like, he has regeneration. I can't do it in a crowded restaurant, but he just got this. He just became berserk with glee.
My favorite chew toy ever.
Yes, he's clearly forming plans around Hank's regeneration.
Can I use our communal napkin?
Yeah.
All right.
So
I only use that side.
we also we started hitting traps. They were like hidden in the floor. Hank stepped in one that did massive damage and also pinned his leg. And if you just pull his leg out, it does even more massive damage and stuff like that. So Cricket had to use thievery to extricate his leg without ripping it off. So, after a couple more of these traps, Hank finally snaps. And Robert has a cinematic point left. Or rather, it's the communal cinematic point, but, we'll give it to him because he suffered a lot. And he has these abilities, or like, what was it, heedless charge and ignore the pain or something like that. So he's like, hey, can I use the cinematic point and these abilities and go berserk? And just, like, run madly through this maze and map a whole crap ton of it out, because it's really tedious.
And so he did. He just went berserk and just started smashing against the walls, and everyone's just...
Was he smashing the floor with his hammer too?
No, because he was just running.
Yeah.
He did run over some traps, and like I had them attack him, but he just ran over them. Or like, he took the shrapnel damage, but it wasn't. There was nothing in here that was enough to take him down. So it was just more and more pain. So he just ran heedlessly through it. There was a great part where the maze like spiraled in and then spiraled back out, and he had to like suffer through all that. And so just with like 2 minutes of sheer roaring and pain, he found his way through the thing, and everyone is just like, I think Aurora was crying. He said Cricket was crying.
Was running along trying to do the chalk thing while trying to stop him, and
Tim mentioned Croesus is just standing back thinking, this doesn't seem right, but I guess it's his choice. But yeah, he mapped out a significant portion of the map.
Yeah.
What about Aderon?
Aderon had been helping with the traps.
Right.
Aderon has a javelin that comes back to his hand. And so he was methodically throwing the javelin into the square ahead of Hank. Just throw, jump, as the whole thing was going along.
Because when he was going slowly, Hank first was hitting the square in front of him with his hammer, but after he hit that leg trap. But then he hit an exploding shrapnel trap, which had an area effect and still hit him. So that's why Aderon was throwing the javelin up ahead, so he'd be out of range.
Trigger traps before he got to them.
But he couldn't really do that when Hank went berserk.
Yeah. We're really using the brute force strategy in all its aspects. And so Hank got like most of the way through the maze. At least I hope it's most of the way through the maze. And it finally reached a spot where there's this one of those tree spots, but there's actually a tree in there made of stone, and it seems to be moving.
Oh.
Or something like that.
And that's where you left off?
That's where we left off. I think it's probably friendly. Oh yes. Aurora did manage to get some information out of Riproar about what was ahead. And it was something called the Cortex Room that we have to get through to get out. And there's some sort of monster or something in the way that Riproar doesn't like dealing with. So he's trapped down here essentially. But he's okay with that because he's built this horrible maze down here. Though Aurora was sort of convincing him that it would be nice to go out of the maze and stuff. Why don't you come with us? Stuff like that.
Well, and he told them the direction of the Cortex Room. They made their insight, and they discovered he was telling the truth, but he was particularly happy to tell them direction since it was basically right through the electricity main.
Yeah. It does seem like Hank is the de facto most productive member of the party.
Oh, definitely MVP for this session.
Yeah. I figured it out. Smash and run.
And it's like he's continued falling on the hand grenade.
Yeah.
Over and over.
Over and over.
Job.
Yep. Cricket's really upset because Hank's taking her job.
I hate invisible force fields. I'm gonna get Riproar and pop his little head like a zit. Ah!
I'm trying to remember what happened today, but when I close my eyes, all I can hear is these pitiful howls. Oh, oh. Oh dear, I don't think I'll ever get that sound out of my head.
I think that was maybe one of the worst things I've seen in my life. Yep. Yep. I will never forget the smell of singed dog hair. I think it's gonna haunt me.
This has been the worst thing I have ever seen. This is my punishment. This must be my punishment. I've tried so hard, and I can't help. Poor Hank. I can't stop him. I can't help him. He just keeps running and getting hurt over and over, and I can't oh my. This is horrifying. I think perhaps Croesus is right. This is some kind of nightmare I'm having. Or he's having. But I don't know if he knows me that well. I don't know what to do.
Got Danik and Fezum fighting inside my head, see. It's all my fault, because I always used to bring up my problems whenever they were around. And then by the time they were finished fighting about it, I'd have figured out what I should be thinking. And see, Fezum, he would have said that that everybody, the law applies differently to different kinds of people, see. For instance, it would be wrong for me to keep zapping myself against a wall like that dog boy's doing, but it's okay for him to do it because he regenerates, see. And he would say that you just have to listen to Cricket to see that it's okay for her to be a servant because she was born to service. You just have to listen to her and she'll tell you that. But see, Danik, he's always going on about how the law is the law and slavery is wrong no matter what. Anywhere you go, slavery is wrong. And it's wrong for someone to just, wow, he just keeps doing that, doesn't he? Yeah, so Danik, he keeps telling me I should, just look at Little Cricket and see that what they did to her was wrong. I should listen to my heart, see, but I'm trying, but I got this song in my head, and I can't. It was so beautiful.
I hate invisible force fields. I'm gonna get Riproar and pop his little head like a zit. Ah!
Oh, it's so beautiful. I'm so glad I spent all the time making this. This is the best day of my life.